Yes, sorry. Welcome to all on week 8 of Israel at War. For those I haven't spoken to, welcome again. There'll be more joining in as we go through. Itan cannot be with us live in the early part of today, as he is at a meeting with a lot of political heads in Melbourne. He may join us a bit later on, but he has done a pre-recording with Dr. Ron Poorat that I'm going to play for the first 20-25 minutes it goes to, and then we'll be joined by Major Daniel Jacob, who some of you may have met briefly a few weeks ago, but Daniel is a friend, and I'll speak more of him as he comes on. So just mute yourself if you haven't already, and we will play this segment, and I'll try and share screen. And just get that.
Dr. Ron Poorat. Good afternoon, everyone here on the weekly meeting of the partnership between Global Israeli Leadership and Kingdom Builders, the Australian, New Zealand system of friendship and love for the state of Israel. And we are committed, both you, John Lockwood, and myself and my friends in the Israeli diasporic organization, GIL, Global Israeli Leadership, to keep you in a picture of the situation in Israel since the 7th of October attack by the Hamas on our Western Negev border with Gaza. I think that we've done really very authentic, until now, a very comprehensive presentation on different aspects of the war. We had last week Professor Oded Shoseov, who spoke about the implication of the war on Startup Nation and science and innovation in the state of Israel. This week, I have to apologize that I'm not with you live, and I asked John to give me the opportunity to bring over a guest, an articulate scholar, an expert on Middle Eastern issues. Dr. Ron Poorat is on air few times a week on Australian TV, writing columns to different press and written media in Australia, and became, in a way, the voice of Israel in Australia, at least in my perspective. Also a writer and a columnist at the AJAC organization that is protecting the profile of the state of Israel and the Jewish people in Australia. And I would like to ask Ran to cover in this session I would say, the voice of the Islam, the extremist side of Islam in Australia, on publishing his book, Under the Radar, an Australian Extremism, will give you a better picture on where we are at the moment on the ground in Australia. Ran is my colleague to creating 10 years ago the Association of Israelis in Australia, and he is always there to comment on the Israeli community in Australia. He wrote many papers. His doctorate at Monash University was about the Israeli diasporic community in Australia. That is definitely 10% of the entire Jewish community in figures. And more than that, I will leave for Dr. Ran Purut, as our guest today, to elaborate and give us his perspective on the situation and, of course, on extremism in Australia. Please, Ran.
Thank you, Eitan, for the introduction and for inviting me over to speak to this esteemed audience. As Eitan noted, I write extensively about extremism in Australia, and my focus is actually outside the, I would say, the focus of the mainstream media. So because I speak Arabic and I read Arabic, I started about 5 years ago in the service of AJAC, the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Commission, to research and look into extremist voices inside the Muslim and Arab community of Australia. And for those of you who were a bit shocked and surprised to see the fireworks on October 7 in some of the less pro-Israeli suburbs of Sydney, and the celebrations and the appalling protest or demonstration or at the steps of the Sydney Opera House the following day, where lots of vile statements about Jews were said, I would recommend that you look into my work, and you will not be surprised, because I was not. What happens is that over the last, I would say, at least 15 years, a long series of organizations, religious institutes, established media, mainstream media in Arabic and in English that is looking at the Arabs of Australia as their audience, and a network of pro-Iranian sort of agents in Australia have been spreading these messages of anti-Semitism, extreme anti-Israeli sentiment, extremism in general, conspiracies, which of course the Jews are at the center of many of these conspiracies, and misinformation, disinformation, and a lot of other messages that are aimed eventually not only at criticizing Israel in the worst possible terms, but also at creating an Australian society which is divided from within. So it's undermining social cohesion in Australia. So I'll give a few examples which are noted in my book. My book is an upcoming book, should be published within the next few months. The working title is Under the Radar Australian Extremists. And I say under the radar because you haven't heard about them. And why haven't you heard about them? Because many of them operate in a language you don't know, Arabic, and you are not the target audience. So going back to an example, let's take one of the most established, respectful, well-known Australian media in the Islamic context, the Australian Muslim Times, AMOST. In my book, I list the months and years of extremist articles, stories, pictures published on that newspaper, in print and online, including a sort of hinted support of terrorism. The editor, the main editor, chief editor of AMOST, Zia Ahmed, has been, I would say, spreading anti-Israeli sentiment for years. Even the recent events after October 7th, he actually sort of increased the tempo, the viciousness, the vitriol of his statements, of his articles. For instance, adopting quite happily the conspiracy theory promoted by the Palestinian Authority that Israel killed their own people at the party at Ra'im, repeating these famous slogans that Israel is an apartheid state, a racist state, and him and others that publish on Amos for the last years, not only after October 7, continuously say Israel is Nazi Germany. And now we know, but based on the IRA, the definition of the working definition of anti-Semitism, distorting the Holocaust in that way, suggesting that the Jewish state is actually Nazi Germany, is considered anti-Semitism, classic anti-Semitism. So Amos is just one example. And I remind you that the editor of Amos has won all sorts of prizes from Multiculturalism Australia. A similar phenomenon you can find in another newspaper, or this time in Arabic, El Telegraph, that over the years published several conspiracy theories about Israel. For example, that Israel is about to take control of the Middle East, that all its wars against Lebanon or Syria are just part of that evil plan, and that Iran and Israel working together to sort of under the radar again, coordinate the take over the Middle East and the region in general. So this is directly from the classic Russian protocols of the Elders of Zion trope. So these are just two examples from the established press. If you look into organizations in Australia, there is a branch of a fundamentalist organization called Hizb Tahrir. Hizb means party, Tahrir means liberation, the Liberation Party, I would say, which is a global organization aimed at reinstituting the caliphate, the Muslim or Islamic regime that controlled parts of the Middle East in the past, a century ago, or less than that. So that group operates in Australia. They have their own branch. And they were saying the same things. One of their previous leaders, that now passed away, Abu Anas, Ismail El-Wahwah, said on the radio, the broadcast to their hundreds of supporters, that warned Israelis, don't go to sleep tonight, because the Arab armies are coming for you, and they will kick you out, and they will butcher you, and you better pack your stuff and refresh your European passports, because you'll need them, because the Arab armies are coming for you. They're going to reconquer Palestine. They're going to free Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? The Temple Mount in Jerusalem, etc. And these are organizations that openly are active, publicly active, and they appear in those demonstrations we've seen over the last few weeks. Their representatives, their leaders, saying, don't even hide those extremist, dangerous messages. It is not surprising to me as well, as the book shows. These are the same people that, for instance, reject human rights, reject gay rights, rejects women's rights. For instance, one of the preachers of another organization, the Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which is another fundamentalist Sunni organization operating in Australia, gave a sermon of almost an hour, detailing why homosexuals are spreading disease and are dangerous and are stupid. And this was all done with jokes and smile. And you can see the same people operating to discredit Israel, the same people spreading hate, the same people. These are the same people that are calling out for killing of Jews and are operating sort of freely in the public sphere. The second part of my book touches on what we call the tajamu, network. Now, the Tajamu organization is its headquarters is in Tehran, and it has branches across the Western world, and it enlists pro-Iranian activists and scholars to disseminate the propaganda that the Iranian regime produces in its, dark cellars. For instance, that U.S. is the big Satan, and that Israel is the small Satan, and that the Zionism should be eradicated, and that all evil originates from the Zionist movement. Now, these useful and dangerous idiots operate inside Australia. One prime example, a famous person is Professor Tim Anderson, who was kicked out of the university in Sydney after superimposing swastika on an Israeli flag during a lecture. He later was reinstated or won some sort of appeal against that. But the bottom line is you can understand from his that action who is that person. So he is like the secretary of El Tajamu in Australia, and he's working with other people like Hussein Dirani, who's a pro-Iranian Lebanese origin Sydney-sider. And they have a network of operatives. They appear in the media. They being interviewed by, let's say, Hezbollah networks. They publish stories in English and Arabic how much Israel is horrible and how it should be eradicated and racist, etc., on their social media accounts, on their fake websites and fake institutes. So you can see that the infrastructure, and that's the bottom line here, the infrastructure of all this hate and all these anti-Semitism and the conspiracy theories, for example, that Jews are behind the corona. The corona was a hotbed, a petri dish of such conspiracy theories against Jews worldwide, and also in Australia. So the infrastructure to that hate that we see in the streets today, in those pro-Palestinian rallies, was always there. Just that no one noticed until I started to dig in. These are just a few examples. The book has many, many examples. And I asked myself, shouldn't the Australian authorities do something? Shouldn't we, as a society, reject those peoples? Because none of these organizations or individuals, the online preachers, the preachers in mosques, the allegedly columnists, none of them talks about peace. None of them talks about solution to the conflict. None of one suggests discussion. They all repeat like parrot. They all parrot slogans of hate produced in Tehran, produced by Hamas. And Hamas and ISIS share the same ideology and the same methodology dealing with humans. They all sanctify death while we want to live in peace. So no wonder Jews in Australia sometimes, especially in such tense times, feel unsafe. We need to address one of the root causes for this environment and atmosphere, those public figures and their activities that remain unchecked. This is basically what my book is about, and how it's related to the current reality post October 7th.
Ran, thanks so much for introducing us to the book and its content. And we are talking here about domestic Australia, and it reflects on other nations as well. And I would like to ask you, researching a phenomenon like here, that is in a way limitedly controlled by government, and you also coming out with a voice, with a call to consider, I would call it a level of hatred towards Jews and Israel. And what would be your pace, or I would say your roadmap to find your book, for example, in places that are significantly making an impact on worldview on Israel, like you know, UK or Scandinavia or Canada, where we need I would say a mirror of your book given to advocacy and governments and parliaments outside Australia. You know, we see a little bit today, a little startup nation, Australia, on anti-Semitism, on combating anti-Semitism. There is a voice here. There is former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg speaking very louder and asking people to sign petitions. How could you take it, or how could you export your book, or via which organizations you could indicate?
So it is important. First, I did part of the journey was publishing some of the revelations in the book. I would say 50% are already published on the Australia Israel Jewish Affairs Commission's website and journal, Ajax journal, but in other places as well. I was interviewed by the ABC, SBS, news.com.au, and other places about such events, and also other mainstream media. So it was, some of it was out. It didn't get enough traction or attention. I can't speak of outside Australia really extensively. I know that these kind of behavior, this kind of pattern exists, 100% exists in places like Canada and across Europe. Who is in charge of keeping them in check, I don't know. It is important from my perspective to send this research to policymakers inside the Australian government, inside the Australian security apparatus, the police, the ASIO and others, and to Jewish community bodies, so that can they at least be aware of what is happening, just sort of as what is simmering. And there's undercurrents in the Australian Muslim and Arab community. All I can say is that I'm continuing my work. The book doesn't go into what happened after October 7th because it's just too fresh. But I know that only touched the tip of the iceberg. And the iceberg is huge. I'll give you just one example. A few years ago, I was in Sydney and I took a taxi on the way back from the airport, from where I was to the airport. And I didn't say anything to the taxi driver. He was Muslim. And he said to me, you know, I've heard about the Beirut blast. I remind you, a couple of years ago, there was a huge blast in the Beirut port, most likely because of Hezbollah administered or misadministered ammonia, nitrate ammonia that was stored there. A huge blast killed hundreds and destroyed parts of Beirut. It's a horrible event. The thing is, shortly afterwards, there were conspiracy theories that Israel is actually, of course, responsible for that explosion by some sort of missile or nuclear weapon or whatever other lie. So the taxi driver said to me, I know 100% this is Israel behind the port explosion. And I could hear in my brain that he's repeating something I read somewhere on social media or in the press at the time. So I have no doubt that this requires community engagement by the police, by non-extremist organizations operating in Australia in the Muslim community. And that's the one point I should make. Many, if not most, of the Muslims in Australia are peaceful, law-abiding people. And the Islam we saw on October 7th and that I reflect on in this book is not the true Islam. I graduated I have a bachelor's degree in modern Middle Eastern studies. I studied the Quran. This is not what the Quran is preaching for. This is a political abuse of the preachings of harmony and good faith that are a huge part of the Quran. Even their Surah Al-Fatiha, their basic prayer, calls Muslims to follow the righteous way, the right way, Sirat al-Mustaqim, the correct way. So the bottom line is, I think there's a lot more to uncover here, and I've just started.
Dr. Pורת, first of all, your message in your presentation is on route to peace. How could we find a way to centralize our thoughts on route to peace, and how to calm down hatred, in particular in Australia? It is a recording. Unfortunately, it's not live, but I would ask the audience to present to Dr. Pורת questions and pass it via John Lockwood, and a list of questions will be answered by Ran later on. The link will be there, so you can pass the message, especially to your Australian and New Zealand friends, to understand that there is a misinterpretation of the situation in Israel. And later on, when the book will be published, we'll put it across to you as a link to get a better perspective on the situation here in Australia during wartime and the day after the war. Thank you so much, and grateful on behalf of all of us for joining us this afternoon, Sunday afternoon, on our weekly update during the Iron Swords war in Israel, and we're all praying and saying Chag Sameach for Hanukkah to all, the holiday of lights, to really see our future in a different circumstances, for the benefit of all, and especially for the benefit of both sides of the Gazan border. The residents of our kibbutzim should be back home, and the innocent Palestinians on the other side should stop suffering the Hamas leadership in Gaza and the region. Thank you so much, Dr. Pורת.
Thank you for Akan to record that with Pורת. And if you've got any questions, I'm happy to send them on to him. It's very interesting. You know, it's like this sleeping giant that's been building over many, many years in Australia. And I was a bit dismayed, I don't know about you, to see our government accepting another 890 odd Palestinians as refugees. And more than that, I was more amazed when we saw that our government has decided to double its amount of giftings from Australia to UNRWA, up to 20 million. So I've been writing, in fact, I had dinner on Tuesday night with one of our local members and our old friend Erica Betts, and asking them to speak to other politicians in the local government, but we also need to be talking to our politicians and objecting to particularly the increase of donations to UNRWA and to anything else that's happening that you want to. So again, I just encourage you to keep up the good fight that we continue to go against during this time period. I see I have my friend iPhone 152 has arrived. That's our friend Major Daniel Jacob. And welcome, Daniel. It's great to have you with us. Once again, we had a brief time with you last time, and I thought it was well worthy of getting you to come back on and just share a bit more, because you're the man on the spot, you're the man on the ground, you're in there and at it on a consistent basis. But first, Daniel, perhaps tell a little about your history and your story and then go into what's happening on a day-to-day situation. But welcome and thank you for coming.
Okay, so nice meeting you guys. Good morning in Israel. I'm Daniel Jacob, Major Daniel Jacob in reserves.
Whoop, something happened. Hold on. What happened?
You hear me now?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
My real life is actually, I live in a suburb of Jerusalem. I have 4 kids, amazing wife. My son tomorrow is going to join the army too.
Wow.
Yeah, he was actually in the Air Force, but he tried to be a pilot, but at the end he didn't. So he's going to try to go to a different army unit. Also special forces. And I remember when he was born 19 and a half years ago, the midwife said he has broad shoulders. And I said, whoa, what does that mean? He could be a very good soldier, like, when he's a baby, infant. I said, no, 19 and a half years ago, we're going to have, in the future, we're going to have peace with we won't need an army because, my little baby here would not be a soldier like me. But here we are after 19 and a half years, and also we are needing any soldier, good soldiers to defend Israel. That's about my son tomorrow. And I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. And age, when I was 3 years old, my parents decided to make Aliyah, which means to immigrate to Israel. And since then, I'm in Israel for the past 42 years. And now I was called up I work as a tour guide. I have a tour company. And I love Israel. And then the traumatic day of Simchat Torah, day of happiness of the Torah, I was called up to the army, and since then, the past 2 months, I'm in the army day by day, mostly nights. I can tell you later on what we're doing in our missions, and defending Israel. I have 500 soldiers under my command, and all the 500 guys and some girls are really working very hard, left all their families, their life, their reality, their work, and everything, and joined the army to defend Israel. Any questions, or how do you want to do this, John?
Yeah, no, that's great, Daniel. That's fantastic. And you live up on your house is up out of Jerusalem. There's a bit of a story about where you live, and you've got a lot of Arabs and others around you in that settlement.
Yep, I have. I live in a settlement. It's called the settlement. Like I live 50 minutes from Jerusalem, and it's on the way to the Dead Sea. And officially, of course, since 1967, it's become a settlement. When I left that morning, my wife said, "What, are you leaving us in the middle of the army? I need you here. I need you next to me. I need you to defend, But we have small units of ex-army guys who are defending all the communities and settlements. And yes, it's a little more, in the art and how you say it, like it's not exactly more dangerous because now all of Israel is dangerous. The north, the south, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, everything is now more hectic and more busy and more dangerous. But yes, we have more Arabs over here, and we have mostly Bedouins, by the way, and we get along just fine with them.
Yeah, that's what I was amazed about. Everybody got on so well.
I just finished fixing up my house. I built another Airbnb, and the guy who fixed my house is a neighbor of mine living in a village nearby. We get along just fine. We drink coffee every morning. We speak Arabic and Hebrew together. We talk politics. We disagree a lot. We get along just fine.
Yeah.
And of course, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this later on, but the biggest problem with the village next to me is not the people. is not the workers that are working very hard for a living, is the education system.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you guys, I'm sure you know about what's going on in the education system. All the Palestinian Authority, there's no difference between the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority's educational system. In schools, they learn just the same kind of thing. When I teach my kids, and my kids, Jewish kids, and no matter what kind of Jewish kids, religious, secular, left, right, no matter which kid in Israel, when you teach, and you teach them history, you teach them the reality, what happened. And you teach about the neighbors next to us who are, we got to just have good peace with them. And, fine, you have some extremists here and there, but mostly get along with them and live with them. That's our education.
Yeah.
But Palestinian education, funded by the Palestinian Authority, is a very, very big problem in Israel.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys heard what Golda Meir said. 1970s, she said, we're going to have peace with Palestinians when they love their children more than they hate us.
Yeah.
Then we're going to have peace. Now, they really teach. Now, I could show you pictures later on if you want. I posted on my phone if you want. I can send you in a WhatsApp group, whatever you have. I went a few nights ago to a mission. Now, I could tell you what we got. I could tell you what we do at night. We actually go every night, my units, to homes of Palestinians all around the Judea and Samaria or in West Bank, and we arrest Hamas terrorists. So 2 nights ago, we found $100,000 in cash funded for terrorism. Some guy got it. We got intelligence that this guy just now got a big bag of cash to do a terrorist attack. So we arrested him before we came out of the house. And a few nights ago, we arrested a guy who has done a lot of propaganda in all kind of Arab villages to go and attack Jews. And of course, we arrest Hamas terrorists, and we mostly arrest bad guys. That's our biggest, and we see every night when we go, I see what they see in their homes. I see the posters. I see the pictures in the homes. It's not like a thing I'm making up over here. It's the education system is saying that a terrorist who kills Jews is a hero. They have all the terrorist lists. I can show you a picture that killed Jews in the past 20 years since the last Intifada. Who killed Jews in the wall? He's a hero. They name squares and all kinds of junction in the villages named after people who killed Jews. They are the heroes. My hero is a guy from the Bible who saved the Jews. Oh, my hero is a woman called Devorah the prophet in Book of Judges, or in Hannah Senesh, who was the first Jewish paratrooper in Israel, or a guy who invented ICQ, or a person who's this. So that's my hero, or my kid's hero. Their heroes are people who killed Jews. So they make up a new, and I see this in their books. I see this in their education system, that they say a whole different story about the history of Israel. They make up a new history, which means we kicked their nation, their country out of Israel or Palestine, of course, to Palestine. And they had a country, they had a nation, they had a history, they had everything, and we came and just took up everything from them, and they got to kill us because of that. That's the bottom line of the history of the Palestinian people. Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it? And teaching from kindergarten onwards as to kill the Jews and all of that. Interesting, you say with your troops and you go out. Where do you get? How does the intelligence come through to you each day to where to go and who to look for and all that? Or have you got a special part of your unit looking at that on a consistent basis?
So we have part of our unit and part of the Shin Bet. Shin Bet is like the CIA or FBI, whatever you call it. Or in Australia, you have another. I'm sure you have intelligence. We have very good intelligence. But what we learned in 7 October, our intelligence did not work in Gaza area. Now I'll say something more political that my view thinks about that is that I think that where you take out Jews from their homes, what happened in 2005, when they said, we'll kick out the Jews from Gaza, which actually brought us a lot of intelligence. Which means now we had to take out the Jews from Gaza, and because we took out the Jews from Gaza, all the information, all the intelligence, and a lot of resources we had inside Gaza were gone.
Yeah.
Okay, we have people, either Palestinians who work with Jews who are actually our spies, or we give them money in other kind of ways, or we have Israelis or Druze, D-R-U-Z-E, the Jews who live in Israel, who are spies living in Gaza, disguised as Palestinians or Hamas members. That's our intelligence. But since 2005, our intelligence was gone. So yes, we still had some intelligence about what's going on with, and our top generals, which did not listen to the intelligence, just like Yom Kippur War, said, no, it's not serious. No, it's not going to happen. No, that. Because of that disrespect of the intelligence people, our trauma happened in October 7th.
Yeah.
So our intelligence is very good. We in the West Bank and also in Lebanon, we have very good intelligence by like minutes. Like we know where the terrorist is staying. We know where the terrorist is drinking coffee. That's our accuracy.
Yeah, no, that's good now. Yes, I've heard a lot of different theories and a lot of people talking about, blind eyes and generals not listening and all of that sort of thing. I think Caroline Glick from the USA is, pretty on the spot as to some of the things that will be examined when hopefully the war is over, and some are going to lose.
Exactly. We're not going to blame now the generals because we need them to finish the war.
Yeah.
But my own opinion is that the guys who are blamed to this war, they cannot finish up the war. They cannot win this war because they're not, from my opinion, they don't have the skills to do it. We got to replace the guys, even now, even in the middle of the war, by better generals, and we have better generals.
Yeah.
That those guys kicked out of the army a few years ago because they were too tough and too serious. That our army became a little more like, we call it, you know what, we're not going to go into that issue, but yes, but it's not easy for a lot of soldiers that I see and I feel. I have 500 soldiers. I say, Daniel, why can't we, do this and that? Oh, because the general said, like, for example, a few weeks ago, there was a tweet in Twitter and in Facebook of some clothing store in one of the villages, or in actually one of the cities were under my command. So we sent a message to our general, listen, can we destroy that store? We have to show these people that if they laugh at our terror, the tweet was actually against our kidnapped girls. But they laughed at the kidnapped girls, and they put all the kidnapped girls in a poster with the clothing of the store. It was and everyone laughed at the girls that were kidnapped. So I said, listen, we got to go and teach them a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't get a permit from the general.
Yeah.
So no, it's to this, to that. At the end, we did. And after we destroyed the store. We came with a tractor and destroyed the store. All the people in that area of the city stopped laughing at the Jews. And now we have to understand that in the past couple of years, the generals allowed the Palestinians to not be afraid of the Jews. Now we are outnumbered big time around us.
Yeah.
Everyone, all the world is saying that we're the Goliath, we're the big bad wolf, we're the big this. No. Look, guys, look around. Do a zoom out of the map of Israel. You'll see 22 Muslim countries around Israel. We're the small, tiny country that if we don't have a good, strong army, we're not going to be here. I wish we'd have Australia as your kind of neighbors. I wish we had oceans all around and nice and safely, kind of like compared to Israel of course. We got all around us people who don't want us over here.
Yeah. And
if we're not strong, and if we're not show the Arabs, we're not afraid of you. You got to be afraid of us, because if you play around with us, we're not going to let you be here.
Yeah.
If we're not going to be strong, that's a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And as we've been there a number of times and we see what is happening, etc. So we're in agreement with you, Daniel. Listen, one of the things we touched on last time that I was really didn't cross my mind, I hadn't thought about, was the effect on your 500 soldiers when they're seeing, constant killings, death, horrifying scenes, arms, legs blown off, all that sort of stuff. I mean, how do you, as the leader, handle, the kids working in front of all of this and the effect perhaps later on in their lives? What's the process that you use?
So I'll even deepen your question, because also we have soldiers who are dying.
Yeah.
Which means friends of ours and my soldiers, and then you have to also meet up with the family, the wife. Like a few weeks ago, we had a soldier who was killed, murdered. His wife is pregnant, and he has 3 other kids, young kids. How do we deal with that? Okay, so of course, most of my soldiers are reservists, so they're not young soldiers who are just joining the army like my son or other young heroes who are fighting for Israel. We have mostly people who are in regular work, like they're doctors, they're accountants, and they're teachers or whatever they do in their life, and then they have to leave everything and go to the army. And what we see sometimes is not easy. What we see also in the villages, and also what happened, of course, in the trauma day but because we feel that we are doing, and we have a lot of things in our soldiers, a lot of people, a lot of history, a lot of people depend on us. We have no time now to mourn. We have no time now to be sad or depressed or post-trauma. We have no, for sure, after this war, half of my soldiers would need a therapy, for sure. Also me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and when 3 nights ago, I picked up 2 bodies of terrorists that they had bullets in their, I don't want to say where, but it's not an easy picture to see as a soldier, as a person. Then you got to go back home and hug your kids and kiss your wife and whatever, be a normal person again.
Yeah.
Or go to work and be a nice, gentle person, whatever you do. After you see all this crazy stuff. So what we say now to the soldiers, and also what I say myself, that we are now busy defending and saving Israel from this war. So now there's no time for, of course, by the way, the army sent us, we have social workers, and they sent us psychologists. And yes, we have 2 guys who couldn't continue. We have 2 guys who just couldn't continue. And we said, okay, thank you so much. You go back home, and they're in therapy now.
Yeah.
But most of the guys, 99%, are continuing, are working mostly at night, because we have a big mission to do, and we're not going to stop this mission until we finish it.
Yep. Yep. So constantly talking about, and encouraging the morale and what you're fighting for, what we stand for, the history of our people, the families at home, etc. You focus on that rather than what we're going to be, what we might see tomorrow or whatever might happen.
Right. So I'm a historian. You know me as a tour guide, of course, and a historian, and I like teaching my soldiers, and that gives them a lot of motivation. Now it depends on the commander. If you have a good commander, and I see this in my one of the platoons, that the commanders are not as good as a different platoon, the soldiers' motivation is a problem. It depends on the commanders and the officers who talk and give motivation talks and give power and motivation to our soldiers. And I'm taking this from the past and history all the time. I always bring to my soldiers stories from the Bible, stories from, for example, now Hanukkah, the holidays of Hanukkah, of the Maccabees and the Hashmoneans, that before every battle of the Maccabees, Judah Maccabee gave a big talk and a motivation talk to his soldiers, and I read it from them from the script, from the history book that was written down 2,000 years ago, 2,200 years ago to be exact.
Yeah.
If this guy 2,200 years ago or 3,000 years ago from the Bible, Gideon the judge in the book of Judges, if they could do it, and they give a motivation talk to the soldiers and how to do tactics and how to fool the enemy and how to win this war, we could do it also nowadays as their descendants and also as the next generation in the promised land of Israel. And if you don't connect these guys, these soldiers, to their past, to the history, and to why they are doing what they're doing, why are they defending Israel?
Yeah.
It's not going to be, there's no reason to be here.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, you know, just I think everybody on this call anyway would be aware of Hanukkah and the story of the Maccabees and all of that. We're just going through. In fact, we had on Friday, our Rabbi Reisenberg did a whole series on the Maccabees and that whole story, which was fascinating. I see Delari and Zeb have a hand up. I've got a question to ask. So unmute and ask Daniel your question.
By the way, John, how many people do we have? How much time do we have in this?
We've got about another only 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll let you loose.
45 or 45?
4 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Hi, Daniel. I'll make this quick. I'm originally from America, living in Australia now. I've been posting lots in support of Israel and the IDF, praying for God to be with you in all you're doing. And I'm just wondering, from your point of view, I know the Biden administration is actually hindering more than helping, trying to push for ceasefire, all these type of things. I'm just wondering if you can speak to that a bit. I've also sent you a friend request as well.
On Facebook.
Yes.
No problem. So I'll answer the question on Facebook, no problem, later on when I get to the base. So I'll tell you this. Biden and the American administration is a very important player in the game. Okay? One of the reasons we didn't start right away after we attacked, they attacked us on 7th of October is because we had they actually stole our plans of how to conquer Gaza, by the way. They went into one of the bases and they stole it. And that's one of the reasons it took 2 weeks to start. Another reason is because of money. To attack Gaza, we need money, we need bombs, we need ammunition, and about 400,000 reservists were called up. We didn't have enough guns for them. So one of the reasons we need the Americans is, one, is because of the money, which means we're a tiny country, a small, not amazingly rich country in the Middle East. We need that help. Number two is intelligence. We work with intelligence to them. The guys from Yemen are stopped only by Americans, not by us. And they have 2 aircraft carriers coming that making sure that if Iran will start being another player in the game over here, they're going to start and defending Israel. So that's 2 reasons we need that support. But I agree with you 100% that when they shake your hand, they say, okay, listen, I'm helping you now. Now listen to me. I'm going to tell you what to do. And that we cannot do. Now, if you have a friend that says, I'm giving you a present, and now he wants it back because he gave it to you a present, he can take it back. But if you buy it from him by money, you can't. I bought it from you. It's mine now. What I'm saying is that if we get presents from America all the time, we're stuck. That we're actually, depending on that. And yes, the problem is that we have to continue doing what's good for Israel, and not what's good and looks good for the world. And that's what America cares about. They care about human aid, guys. If we give gas and solar and petrol to Gaza, it's giving them more oxygen for terrorism. That's the only reason they need the gas. They don't care about the kids. They don't care about the people. They don't care about anything about themselves and to kill the Jews. They're using the kids. They're using the hostages of Gaza to defend themselves. Our soldiers protect the civilians. in their side, the civilians protect the soldiers. And that's the difference in the concept. And that's a big problem we have, because we're saying to the world, guys, we're not killing innocent people. The Hamas is putting the innocent people right in front of them. And of course, when you shoot down the bad guys, some innocent people will die because they're using the people to stop the Israeli attack. And that's the biggest problem we have.
Yeah.
So we could finish up Gaza if we want in 2 days. We could finish up Gaza.
Yeah.
But we have two problems. One, it's innocent people that we're the most moral people in the world. We're not going to do it. And two, we have our kidnapped people who are stuck there. We got to bring them back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem now, because, of course, we are unfortunately moral.
Yeah.
I'm saying this unfortunately because sometimes in the Middle East, you got to talk Middle Eastern. You can't talk moral. You can't talk modern and Western. You got to talk this language of what they know. You got to talk power.
Yeah.
You talk in a nice, gentle way. When they speak about to us in English, about in Arabic, they say to kill the Jews and we want Jaffa, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. But then they speak in English or in Hebrew very nicely and very, very gently that we want peace. It's a whole different situation.
Yeah.
When you talk in a Middle way.
Different language, isn't it? Yeah. Rex, Rex and Gay, got a quick question. We'll finish with that one.
Hi, just really quick. Just with what our governments are saying, particularly Penny Wong, I'm not very proud to be Australian right now, but I just wonder how we re-educate our governments around the world, because our government seems to have no idea.
Yeah, it's a challenge all around the world, isn't it?
Listen, this is my last issue. So I'm saying that what we see in our eyes, you can't argue with. I see with my eyes and the soldiers and what's going on in Israel, all this fighting and heroes. Guys, these are heroes going into battle to the most worst enemy zone in the world, which is Gaza. I've been there a few weeks ago also for a few days to get a taste. Now I went back to my area in Judea and Samaria. We see it's very, very complicated to fight over there, and we're doing everything we can to stop this. But what's going on, what the world is hearing is a whole different stories in what's happening in the reality. It's a whole different story. They're seeing it's like, I'll give you an example, last example. It's like something punching me, then I give back a slap. Oh, all the world's seeing the slap, not what they're punching me.
Yeah.
So when we go into Gaza and start drilling and start fighting and start doing everything we can, door by door, instead of coming with a big bomb and finishing it, or not nuclear force. I'm talking about Air Force.
Yeah.
Finishing the job and saying that's it. You've killed our people. Well, that's our retaliation. No, we go one by one. We go door by door, and soldiers are dying because of this. Because of the world that's saying, "Oh, we're the big bad wolf." That's such a different situation, because we are really doing the most we can not to kill innocent people. And all the world and campuses in the world, and also I heard the Harvard and Yale and universities in America, also in Australia, are saying all the Jews are killing the Palestinians, they're butchering the people. That's so not true.
Yeah.
And it's not connected to reality. They are preaching a lie, teaching a lie, and showing the lie around the world, so the lie becomes reality, just like the Nazi propaganda. Same exact propaganda, Nazi 1930s, happening now, this moment in the world against the Jews.
Yeah. We agree, Daniel, and that's why we encourage everybody here to be writing, talking to local representatives, MPs, parliamentarians, anybody they can. And one of the biggest things that I have come across is that a lot of our leaders, inverted commas, in different areas, particularly parliamentarians, really don't have an idea. They don't know the history. They don't know what's going on. And we need to help them, educate them, and
so John, the best way to know the reality is to come see with your eyes. When you came to Israel, you see things, you saw the borders, how they're closed.
Yeah.
You see how back to the Palestinians. You have to see with your eyes, because all the explanations in the propaganda and in the press is nonsense.
Yeah.
You come see with your eyes, you can't disagree with facts.
Yeah.
If you come and see, if you're all the ambassadors and all the parliamentarians, people in America and Australia, whatever, come and visit Israel, see in their eyes, we know, yeah. Okay, that'll be a different situation.
Yep, no, I agree. And we're sending a few Australian politicians over this week, mate, so we're encouraging them to go see what's really happening, so that we can then look. I just want to say thank you, mate. It's always wonderful to see you. It's great that we have a relationship. Hopefully, next year we can come back and you'll be a tour guide again. That's what I'm hoping will happen, and that we'll bring another team over there at some stage and spend some time with you and your family. And Daniel has a wonderful wife and children. You can befriend him on Facebook and you'll see a bit more about the stories that he tells and the people that he's with and his family and his kids. And boy, you just want to say thank you.
You're invited to my home for Shabbat. Invite whenever you want to come, guys.
Yeah, bless you, mate.
Toda Rabba, Daniel.
All
I'm
right. Okay.
Hi.
Now, I'm just going to stop the recording. Come on.